Ujjayi, good day. Welcome back to my channel. This is Crucian Mahogany here, and this is day 2 of Veda, vlog every day in August. So today, I have a treat for you. I actually went to a recording of a radio show where there was a traditional healer that was talking about the importance of traditional medicine and healing and how it works in traditional cultures, things to think about, especially living here where a lot of times a lot of the things that we suffer from can be quite tricky to deal with or can have preventative measures or aren't necessarily addressed by modern medicine. So we get to get an insight from a traditional healer about what it takes to heal the human body. Stay tuned and you'll get to get a sneak peek into the workings of how a traditional healer does their job.
Well, a couple of things. One, the Kemet, I'd like for you to tell us what is Kemet, where is Kemet, and what is the, you know, what is this Kemetic tradition? And without, because I know that's probably a really broad question, but Kemetic tradition and culture, that we have in us that never left us, that's still a part of us that we just don't tap into because we keep on listening to pop culture, radio, and television. So it deadens our senses and ability to vibrate at frequencies, which will allow us to transmit and receive that information. And I'm going to pass it on to you now, brother.
It's a great question. It's a very important question. And I'm glad you came back to it because in radio interviews, I always try to pick my battles on the ignorance that is out there in the popular culture. So I'm glad you brought me back to this one.
Great.
Kemet, there's a lot of misunderstanding about Kemet today. Kemet is originally the name of the culture that that was the name of the culture that was associated with the Pharaonic Society, or the name of the culture of the Pharaonic Society. Nowadays, Kemet is minimized to the area of what we call the Nile Valley, or what we call Egypt. But we have to understand that the Pharaonic culture was a worldwide culture. That's why even now you find anthropologists finding pyramids, finding hieroglyphs all around the world. So you had the Kemetic culture span around the world, and the kingships, the traditional societies that were ruled by a king in the Americas, in China, in around Asia, around Europe, in Australia, all of them really considered themselves as being Kemetic, practicing Kemetic culture. So that Pharaonic culture at a certain point, because of the intensity of the invasions that were happening from those north of the Mediterranean coming across the sea, wanting to kind of loot and grab up the wealth and the authority that they saw Kemet had on the world, the priesthood and the leadership made a decision to cross the Sahara to kind of take the culture underground. So all of the culture that you see, all of the traditional culture that you see throughout the continent of Africa is really coming from the Kemetic culture. It's really like branches of the Kemetic culture, because when they migrated, each family, each bloodline took their specialty to their own locations. And under the Pharaoh, they were all kind of unified and working towards human enlightenment. And so Kemet is really, that's really what we mean when we say Kemet.
Okay. And we're talking as healers, we're talking about health, but not just health after you've encountered the challenge, not health after you've gotten diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, other toxicities, other imbalances, other nutritional deficiencies. We're talking about also the maintenance of health inside of the body. What is it that your community, what is it that your leaders teach us about just the maintenance of health as a lifestyle?
Yeah, that is also a very big question, because there's so many misunderstandings and superstitions that are floating around in the world of health and health sciences today. But the main principle on health, according to our Kemetic ancestors in the Kemetic schools, is that health is based on the balance of forces. And being that health and life itself is based on a balance of forces, health and the maintenance of health is learning the principles of nature, learning the principles of life so that we can find our harmonious position in that balance of forces. So the perspective is in many ways very different from the one we have in the West, because as we can see in the West, our leaders have got us to believe, or led us to believe, that you can solve problems by killing. So here, in order to maintain health, we just tend to kill all of the nature around us that could attack our health. And so we disinfect everything, we bleach everything, and we're just trying to kind of push nature away and put ourselves in a capsule. But we don't really call that health, because we can't disconnect ourselves from nature and the earth and think that we have health. So really it's about maintaining ourselves within that balance of forces. And so that's done mainly, or first and foremost, through knowledge, learning the principles, learning the principles of nature, learning what affects us in different ways, and then making sure that we can stay in a balance between the forces that we are in dialogue with.
Okay, now how does that impact diet? Tell me about the diet of the Earth Center community.
Again, the diet is a question that comes up so much, because first and foremost, we have to understand that we live in a marketplace.
Sure.
America is a marketplace, and a lot of us don't understand that, because when you're born in a marketplace, it's just home. So you don't realize that your home is the place that others around the world come to in order to make money and send money back to their homes. And you see yourself as, you don't realize that your home has become the marketplace, and that's a very detrimental perspective, because in the marketplace, everybody's there to sell. So whenever you have a need, whenever you have an interest, somebody's always going to pop up, say, I got it to sell you. And in that kind of context, that's why it's so important to do what you, Elder Baba, are doing, to make sure that more and more people understand that the only person that will see ourselves as a person that deserves to be protected, that deserves to survive, is ourselves. Because everybody else is just at the marketplace. They're trying to make the money to help themselves and their own family survive. So being that we're in that kind of situation, many superstitions has entered the realm of diet, and it's become that diet has reached a level that is mainly ideological now, because the way our ancestors saw the diet is you have two main food groups. You have occasional foods that you should only eat occasionally, because your body either doesn't need them in excess, or they can't handle them in excess, they can't store them in excess. And then foods that you call staple foods, the foods that your body gains energy from, and even if you eat too much of them, the body just stores the energy that it gains. Within the occasional foods, you have what we call emergency foods. And those emergency foods are foods that in excess even become harmful to us. And so we could easily identify those as like animal products, eggs and things like this, where when we're eating them excessively, they begin to poison the blood, poison the organs. So really, in the Kemetic traditions, we give each initiate this understanding, this knowledge, and now it's for each person to take responsibility for their life and eat accordingly, so that they're not destroying themselves. So that's what I would say, because it's hard for me to really give a diet, because food is really about survival. So you can't really give one type of diet for the whole planet that will allow everybody to survive, because even if it's wise in America to eat predominantly vegetarian diet, which I would, definitely support, because the meat industry here has been given to, you know, the market. But in the desert of Africa, I can't tell them to be vegetarian. You see, that would not allow for their survival.
Or in Alaska.
Exactly.
Couldn't do that.
Alaska.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just about gaining the knowledge and then applying the knowledge.
So, tell me about the priest and the healer. You know, about that process. Who is the priest and the healer, and what do they do? What's their job and responsibility?
Well, the healer and the priest traditionally are those who are very serious about their initiation, and they continue to try to acquire knowledge in order to not only be able to take responsibility for themselves, but also their communities. And so a priest is very, very different than what we know in the modern religious context, because it's not about learning a doctrine or proselytizing. It's more about learning the principles of nature to a level where now you can offer your community assistance in balancing the energies of the community and preserving the life of the community. And the healer is the same, but at a lower level, where the person is focused on doing that for the health. The priest does that kind of at a higher spiritual dimension as well.
So, am I correct in drawing the correlation between the priest and the healer, that there's a connection between spirituality and our physical health and well-being?
Very much so. It will be very hard to separate the two.
And can you then help us understand then, is it the sick heart that creates the sick spirit, or does it happen in the other direction?
Yeah, it's kind of a dialogue. The human being is made up of many components. Kind of, you know, in the West and in the modern systems of education, we really minimize it to maybe the body and the soul, or the body, the mind, and the spirit. But really, we have many dimensions, and we have many, many things that are affecting us in nature from the spiritual perspective. And even to separate the spiritual and the physical perspective becomes very, very difficult, because even we can see when we look under a microscope, things just seem to get like they have less and less parts that we can clearly see.
That's what's up. And would you consider yourself then on the path of being a medical doctor in the traditional modern medical world sense, or are you on the path of being a naturopath or a natural healer?
All of those titles, doctors, naturopath, all of them are coming from a culture and a tradition on which I'm just not interested in gaining any validation from. What we have to understand first, or what we have to understand that's really important, is that what really heals is tradition. Even more so than plants, even more so than any modality, is tradition. It's the body of knowledge that has been passed down from your ancestors from generation to generation on how to use a particular substance or thing in order to bring about balance to the body. So I am an initiate and a healer in the system of Kemet, in the Kemetic traditions of healing, which traditionally we refer to as Sun. And in that tradition, we call the healer a Sun. So that's my title, and that's my interest.
And do you have, in your healing tradition, do you have herbal remedies, nutritional supplement remedies, homeopathic remedies, pharmaceutical drug remedies? What is your remedy or category? How do you categorize your remedies?
A healer is really expected to be able to utilize whatever he can and that nature provides in order to heal. One of the most effective and kind of one of the most effective ways is through the plant kingdom. And so herbal remedies, herbal medicines are in large part how we heal kind of most effectively and most quickly. But you also have another branch of healing in the Kemetic traditions, which is uh, putting more attention, and the two are not really separate, but putting more attention on the energetic dimension of a person, because and that's a big thing in the West and the communities around the globe that have been disconnected from tradition, because for our ancestors it was very important to maintain the cleanliness of the energetic channels that affect us. So the channel of energy between you and those who carried your blood that came before you, if they died suffering, if they lived in a situation of suffering, their suffering, even after they lose their body, is going to continue to affect you through those channels that you're connected with them through. Like I said earlier, you carried their blood. Also, the natural principles that we live in on the planet, if you are kind of crossing or violating them, those that allow to dirty or bring imbalance to your energetic channels. So there are ways that we can interrogate the energies coming from the earth in order to kind of clean those channels for a human being and kind of heal illness and imbalance before it really shows itself on the physical dimension.
A question coming from the audience. Sister, please tell us your name and ask your question.
My name is Maya, and what you've been talking about speaks to an individual and seemingly the adults. For people who may have children, what do they do to start them off on the right foot? What's the first step for someone who has a baby and wants to start them off right?
Good question, and we often get this question. I even got this question in a similar fashion on the ride over here.
I hope you enjoyed those clips. Please let me know in the comments below if you've ever gone to a traditional healer, or if you would go to a traditional healer, and why or why not. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on day 3. Peace.